Okay, folks, I'm back. It's JB, and I've been waiting for this for a long time. I have a very special guest right in my studio here with the kids, with the audio-video security guard, Phil Marie. Of course, you know that name from the Wheel of Freedom. And I want to welcome Lori Hopkins-Cavanagh. Welcome to the show. It's great to meet you.
It's nice to meet you, too. And I don't think people realize that you stand up the whole time you're doing this show.
I have to. I have to stand up because I'm jumping around and because I'm not terribly comfortable with everything just yet, even though it's been about a year. Because, you know, I'm a state trooper, so this audio, video stuff, and slide this one, touch this one, don't touch that one's going to be green, that one's going to be yellow. The whole thing is daunting sometimes.
Yeah.
But I'm able to get through it. So, anyway, more about you. You are the 2nd District candidate for the United States Congress.
That's right. Running against Courtney.
You are running against Joe Courtney, and, well, it's my pleasure to have you here. I am an avid listener and supporter of your show on Sunday mornings. It's very informative. I know you've been hitting the Common Core thing, which is another one of these things that I would call a progressive ramrod. It just seems to be flying at us from Obama, from his delegates, and I can't help, Lori, but think that we need somebody that's spirited like you to go to Washington, D.C., to get people's attention, because there seem to be too many people that are comfortable. There are too many people that are just become part of a pack, of a voting group, and you don't really see the people pounding their fist down there. And you, to me, seem to be somebody that's going to go down and get everybody's attention and not just be a go-with-the-flow person.
Well, here's the problem with Washington, D.C. My show has allowed me to live virtually in Washington, D.C. for the past 2 years since I started it. And I really pay attention to the issues that are the bills that are introduced, the laws that are passed, and how they affect the local market, the towns and cities in the 2nd Congressional District. There's 64 of them. Mm-hmm. So we have inner cities like New London, Norwich, Willimantic, and we have a lot of rural towns. So it's a mixture of different interests. But the one thing that's missing in Washington, D.C. is the voice of the middle class and the small business person. And that is what the solution is to all of our problems. I know that you have been discussing welfare on this show for quite a while now. And the one thing, the key to the solution to that problem that has to be addressed before anything else is the middle class and the small business person. They have no voice. They are strangulated by and oppressed by taxes and regulations, and every law that is passed in D.C., in Hartford, takes another notch out of their belt, in the sense that they are losing their ability to compete. They are closing their doors, the shops, the small businesses, and they are critical to producing jobs. They're the rainmakers. They're the opportunity makers. And they have nothing. They have no voice. Courtney right now, if you go online, you look at who funds Joe Courtney, and it's big unions and it's big corporations. Mom and pop don't stand a chance. So he goes to Washington, D.C., and he takes care of big corporations and unions. Right. That's what he does. So basically, it's all about money. I have to raise a substantial amount of money to run against Courtney. I have a grassroots campaign. I want to be the voice of the middle class in Washington, D.C. I don't care about the money. That's not why I'm going down there. And, you know, I think that there's a lot of issues and reforms that are needed in Washington, D.C., but the way, the methodology, the way it operates is not in the best interest of us.
So how do we get, now folks, if you're just tuning in, it is JB, obviously. I'm here with Lori Hopkins-Cavanagh. She's going to be a candidate for the 2nd District for the United States Congress, and we're having a conversation about, well, the important things. Lori, how is it? Because I get frustrated as heck. I walk in the morning for an hour and a half listening to the show, and people call, as they call into my show. And we had somebody the other day, someone of prominence, at a paper that's actually made now. Nobody focuses on this.
In Rhode Island.
It's made in Rhode Island and shipped out.
Right, it's printed in Rhode Island.
Actually, I had somebody come up to me.
It's a nonprofit.
Right. I had somebody come up to me the other day that was in not a high rent district, if you will, and he's been a carrier for a long time, and he told me about how when you fill out your subscription for the paper, you can put down a tip that's supposed to go to the carrier. He hasn't seen a tip in over a year. So what bothers me, though, is this, is that the person who's an editor says, well, I wasn't convinced about Daniel Malloy until I heard his State of the State address. And I got to tell you, it really sounded fantastic. But I realized everything that he said could be challenged. What the hell is that? I mean, we've got these folks, and Lori, I do this comparison all the time. I think that the mindset of Barack Obama, Daniel Malloy, and Darryl Finizio are synonymous. They're on that same Kool-Aid. They think the same way. Their rationale, and I believe, I don't get mad anymore, it's laughable. Because they expect people like you're a businesswoman in real estate, an industry that has taken some serious body blows. As a matter of fact, today, and you can talk about this, I actually heard today while I was walking that Fannie and Freddie are profitable now, and they're trying to decide what they're going to do with all their profits.
Yeah, they paid back the government.
They paid us all back.
That's
everything?
Correct. Yes.
Wow, that was done pretty swiftly. So in your first 100 days in Washington, D.C., what are like if you had a punch list of things that you want to go down there and jump at and jump into immediately? What kind of things?
Well, I mean, I've got a list, but accountability, it really burns the American public. You wonder why Congress has such a bad approval rating. Well, no one's accountable for anything.
Right.
They can commit, fraud and lie and cheat, and they are never held accountable. But we are.
Right.
There's a problem with that.
Yeah.
And I think honesty and integrity must return to our government because there's no trust. The American public completely does not trust the lawmakers in D.C. I think that the budget, I'm a fiscal conservative. I really believe that the government is too large. If you go to Washington, D.C., it's booming. There are cranes on every building, the money, the wealth, and it's coming from our pocket.
Right.
We need to keep our wealth locally so we can hire people, go out to dinner, buy cars, and spend it here. And then we'll see our economy recover in the 2nd Congressional District. Let me make it perfectly clear. Connecticut trails the entire country in economic growth. The 2nd Congressional District trails the entire state of Connecticut. We are at the bottom of the bottom, and Joe Courtney does not deserve to be reelected. So when I go down to Washington, D.C., the budget is a big deal for me. I want to keep the money in the taxpayer's pocket. I want to keep the money in small businesses, in the middle class.
Yeah.
We should decide where our money is spent, not somebody in Washington, D.C.
So with the rationale of Barack Obama and that progressive wing, where in reality we know that the rising tide raises all boats, but now the latest thing is, which I guess now suddenly John Boehner has turned the corner, so he's not willing to push through this immigration reform, but income inequality. Last week, when I first heard that, I went nuts and I said, well, geez, there's income inequality, but you may live in a 3,000 square foot house. I live in a 1,400 square foot house. Does that mean that, well, because yours is bigger than mine, that I need to get some special federal funding to bust mine out a little bit? I mean,
absolutely, that's what they're planning.
Fair, life isn't fair.
No.
We're all driven in a different way, and I think that, and I mentioned this the other day, and as you know, because you've been listening, we've had a barrage of calls relative to welfare. And it is, and I spoke about it at the top of my show today. They said, well, where did we turn a corner? And I said, well, we turned a corner from Shirley Temple to Miley Cyrus to twerking. We turn a corner from the people that need something to welfare being more of a comfort level for the politician, they don't have any compassion for the person that's needy.
No, it's a trap. Welfare is a trap, but the problem is we're getting back to the middle class and the small business person. We have what Obama calls ladders of opportunity. The fallacy is that the Democrats are providing ladders of opportunity through welfare. That's not true, because you can't have the poor and the rich, is what we are getting under Obama. The rich are doing great. The stock market's just humming. The rich are getting richer and richer and richer under Obama because of his policies, and the feds and the quantitative easing, what they're doing. But the poor, the ranks of the poor are growing. The middle class is shrinking. That's a fact. And those are the middle rungs of the ladder. If you don't have those middle rungs, you can't climb that ladder. And that is as plain as day. It isn't equal income equality. The word is disparate impact.
I hear you say that.
Very important to understand that. What they want is equal outcomes. It's coming down from a very left-wing, socialist, communist ideology, and it's being forced on us through land use and ownership. In the state of Connecticut, this is shocking, and I really want people to understand this. The National Association of Realtors, who had Hillary Clinton as their keynote speaker last convention, the Connecticut Association of Realtors, which is a member of the National, they just put out a policy, 2014. If you go to Connecticut Association of Realtors, you can print out the 2014 policy. And one of the things they say is that they are strongly against any exclusionary zoning. All zoning is exclusionary.
Sure it is.
All of it is. What they're saying is they are buying into this entire disparate impact, buying into the fact that local control and zoning over our land is going to go bye-bye. The feds are going to control everything we do with our land, who owns the land. That's the next step. We have a socialist government. We're a socialist country right now, and communism is at our doorstep. And people need to wake up and understand what's going on.
Folks, if you're just tuning in, it's Lori Hopkins-Cavanagh. She's going to be the one that's going to be taking Joe Courtney's place down in Washington, D.C. We're going to continue the conversation in just a second. I'm going to pay a few bills. It's JB. I'll be right back. Okay, folks, I'm back. JB, it's a short segment right now. I'm in the studio with Lori Hopkins-Cavanagh. She's the one that's going to, we hope, send Joe Courtney back to Vernon. I guess that's where he lives. Heavy-duty stuff going on in Washington, D.C. We both agree that we seem to, well, he told us it was going to be change we could believe in. I just didn't realize, and I suppose I should have when we saw the plane with the logo on it. I think Rush Limbaugh says it looks like the wave going down into the toilet, the red, white, blue wave. He's got his own logo. I mean, it's nuts, Lori, and it's unbelievable. We obviously need to send somebody down there that is not a cookie-cutter politician. You're not going down there so you can end up with a nice townhouse in Georgetown and go to Ruth Chris every night smoking cigars and drinking the fancy bourbon. I mean, that's fine if you're doing the people's work.
I'm going down there because I have a 13 and a 14-year-old right in front of you right now, and I want my kids to grow up in a free country. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. That's simple as that.
No, you can't cut to the quick any better than that. No. I mean, it's unfortunate
we have citizens being targeted in our country right now. It's not politics as usual.
No, this is much worse.
It's much worse.
It's I mentioned Holder a little while ago. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But I thought that he would come out, at least recognize the 30-year sentence for the Mexican illegal alien that shot and killed a Border Patrol agent. But no, he's on talking about how the government's going to be more resilient with recognizing same-sex couples that work for the government and getting their benefits.
These are non-issues. They want to pay attention to non-issues.
Awful. We'll be right back, folks.
The grid. The grid is the #1 security issue in our country today. The electric grid, if it goes down, it can devastation, loss of life. And what?
Okay, folks, we're back. It's JB with Lori Hopkins-Cavanagh. You don't mind taking calls, do you, Lori?
No,
We've got some fans that want to call in and ask, hopefully, the person that will be sending into Washington, D.C. It is unfortunate that we find ourselves here, and we were just talking off the air. You talk about the epitome of just disingenuousness, if you will. Obama, 4 years ago now, comes up with this, I call it Obama Don't Care. And yesterday, he decides he's going to waive another portion of it so that if you're in business and you have 50 to 99 people and you were faced with this deadline, he's decided by caveat, by his signature, because he's, the Immaculated One. He's just waived it and pushed it off until 2016. It's bizarre almost. It's almost like Chuck Schumer the other day, who was pushing for amnesty, said, well, let's pass the law now. And if you think we're passing it because Obama wants to pass it because he wants more votes for Democrats, we'll pass it now and we won't enact it until 2017. This is what these people are actually thinking, Lori. I don't get it.
Yeah. The media bias that exists, that is killing the Republicans in order to get the ideology of freedom, economic freedom and personal freedom out on the table, because our freedoms are being taken away from us. That's my
Let me ask you a question. How is it that the mainstream media and the print media are able to so regularly and routinely, without even the sleight of hand, just peddle Bravo Sierra, I call it, on a regular basis?
It's amazing.
And the
so
thing
biased.
you know what bothers me, and I've talked about this for a long, long time, even before I had my own afternoon situation, is that the problem I have is coming from a family where my dad worked all day. He came home at 6 o'clock at night. So between 6 o'clock and like 6:20, before my mom gathered everybody and everybody was at the table to eat, he'd have about 30 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes to catch up on the news. And it was, you know, Walter Cronkite, or it was Howard K. Smith and Harry Reasoner.
I grew up the same way.
So back then it was different. Back then I think you gravitated towards the personality that you felt more comfortable with, but there wasn't a variation in the news from the three big channels. Now it's Crazyville in the mainstream media.
It's propaganda, is what it is. It's not. It's not even accurate, and it's vicious. The level. You know, what they do to conservative women in the media is atrocious.
Horrible.
I mean, and I really, as a conservative woman, I won't I won't let them define who I am.
It's JB. Of course, I'm in the company of Lori Hopkins-Cavanagh and her family, and of course, Phil, who's got his finger on the trigger. I will be right back. We will be right back. Don't you dare move. Okay, folks, I'm back. JB. I am here with Lori Hopkins-Cavanagh. We're going to try to get her down to Washington, D.C. in Joe Courtney's place. She's certainly not going to go down there and be a mouthpiece for anybody but herself. She's going to go down there and represent the constituents from her district. And she's going down there from the perspective of being a business person, of being a mom, of being a wife. You run a business that is obviously in our communities, in our neighborhoods. You're a real estate agent, so you know that when the politicians like Obama are talking about how great it is that the unemployment is down, nobody talks about how they found out that they cooked the books before the election and it purposely kept it down below 7. I mean, all these things, Lori, that it's unbelievable that they exist, that they attacked and went after 501c3s and 501c4s that were going to be raising money for conservative groups. They went after and targeted these people. And the other thing that's troubling to me, again, getting back to Holder, because he just makes me sick.
Yeah, he's a big problem.
How does a guy have to get fired? How is a guy that screws up so much? What does a guy have to do in that administration to get fired?
Well, it's not a matter of getting fired. They have a mission, and they're going to fulfill that mission, and they don't care who's incompetent. Competency has nothing to do with this. It has to do with forcing change in our country to rebuild America from the ground up. How do you do that? You get rid of the middle class, you get rid of small businesses, you grow the poor, finally you collapse the rich, and you have a completely new country. And that's where we're headed. And if people can't see the writing on the wall, and you have to disarm the American public in order to achieve that also. If people don't see the writing on the wall, then they're blind. And if the newspapers don't want to report on it, fine. But I'm going to speak the truth. My mom is an immigrant from Italy. She came over here when she was 21. She lived through World War II under Mussolini's fascist government. I grew up hearing stories my whole life about government fascism. I know what communism and socialism and fascism and Marxism is. And I never expected to see it here. Rob Simmons said, he said, you know, I fought this all my life. I never expected to see it in my own country.
Believe the words of JFK
Right.
when JFK went to the lectern, because he spoke with strength. He didn't read somebody else's words off of a teleprompter that's just out of the view of the camera.
Right.
There really isn't anything genuine about Barack Obama at all.
No, I don't think there is, and I have the deepest respect for the office of the presidency, and I don't think it's just Obama. I think that this has been going on for years, because President Clinton, when he introduced and he got on Obama's bandwagon, he made the statement, "We are going to rebuild America from the ground up." Those were President Clinton's words. So these plans, Common Core national education, the gun policies, the regulations that are being imposed to take away our constitutional rights, these have been planned for a long time. It's part of a greater strategy. And we're losing that control over, we need to keep things local. We need local control over our land, local control over our money, local control over our laws, our students, our kids rather. You actually hear these liberal Democrats, bureaucrats in the education system saying that the kids belong to us. My kids don't belong to anyone but my family.
Right.
And if we paid more attention to family values,
Right.
and the strength of the family, then we wouldn't be in the mess we're in today.
Lori, thank you very much for coming into the show today. I'm
Thank
going to
you,
have you
JD.
come back and